Let's be honest. Have you ever worked at a company that felt truly alive? You know, a place where learning wasn't some boring, mandatory training, but just part of the air you breathe? For most of us, that sounds like a total fantasy. But for decades, this exact idea, the learning organization, has been this huge, influential dream in the business world. Okay, let's dive in.
And this right here, this is the vision. This is what Peter Senge laid out in his huge book, The Fifth Discipline. And this idea just completely captured the imagination of leaders everywhere. See, it's not just about, training programs or having a company wiki. It's about creating an entire environment where human potential is just unleashed, where people are constantly growing and the organization itself is transforming from the inside out. It's a really beautiful and powerful ideal. And that brings us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The core tension of this whole thing. After decades of talking about it, hiring consultants, launching countless initiatives, does this utopian vision actually exist in the real world? For most people, the daily grind of blame games, office politics, and just being defensive, well, that feels like a million miles away from this dream. So what's the disconnect here?
To really get a handle on this gap between the dream and the reality, we've got to look at the blueprint itself. See, Senji didn't just throw out a vague, feel-good concept. He gave us a framework, a set of 5 specific interlocking practices he called disciplines that an organization has to master. So let's break them down.
Okay, so the first 4 are actually pretty intuitive when you think about it. You've got personal mastery. That's just your own personal commitment to always be learning, always be growing. Then there's mental models. That's all about surfacing and really challenging our own deep-seated assumptions. The stories we tell ourselves about how the world works. Shared vision is about building a real collective purpose that everyone buys into, not just some mission statement plaque on a wall. And finally, team learning. That's the process of a team coming together to create something amazing, something they all truly want.
But here's the thing. Senjay argued that those first 4 disciplines, as great as they are, just aren't enough on their own. They need a cornerstone, a discipline that fuses them all together into one coherent whole. And that is the 5th and most critical discipline, systems thinking. It really is the glue that holds everything else together.
Now, this principle is a total game changer. It asks us to make a profound shift in how we think. Systems thinking tells us to stop blaming individuals for problems. So instead of asking, whose fault is this, we should be asking, hey, what is it about our system, our processes, our structure, our incentives that made this outcome almost inevitable? It's a huge shift from pointing fingers at people to understanding the underlying structures that drive what they do.
So, if we have this powerful blueprint, why isn't every single company a thriving learning organization? I mean, what gives? This is where we hit the big reality check. Why did an idea with so much promise so often fail to deliver? Or, in some cases, why did it seem to make things even worse?
And this is where the dream just smacks right into reality. For every amazing promise, critics found a potential dark side. That inspiring language of collective aspiration, yeah, sometimes it was used to hide top-down commands. The focus on new ways of thinking, it often totally ignored the real-world power dynamics and politics that stop any real change. And for a lot of companies, the whole thing just became another management fad of the year that burned brightly and then, poof, it was gone.
These critiques really point to what Senjay himself called learning disabilities. These are the forces inside a company that actively fight against learning. I mean, does any of this sound painfully familiar? The blame culture, where you hide your mistakes instead of learning from them. The defensive routines, where we spend way more energy protecting our egos than actually solving problems. Or that classic inability to learn from failure, which just dooms us to repeat the same mistakes over and over. These are like the antibodies that attack and destroy any attempt at genuine learning.
But here's the hopeful part. The story does not end with failure and criticism. Not at all. The idea of the learning organization isn't dead. It's just growing up. It's evolving, it's becoming more critical, more sophisticated, and frankly, a whole lot more relevant to the super complex world we live in today.
You can kind of think about its evolution in 3 generations. The first generation was pretty mechanical. Find an error, fix the error. Simple. The second generation got more humanistic. It was about self-reflection to help meet company goals. But the third generation, now that's where it gets really exciting. It's about reflexivity, constantly questioning our own assumptions, and co-creation, which means inviting lots of diverse voices into the process to build something totally new together.
And this evolution is taking the conversation to some truly fascinating places. I mean, cutting-edge thinkers are now pushing this whole concept way beyond just improving the bottom line. They're asking much bigger questions. Like, what if the goal of organizational learning wasn't just to be more competitive, but to help solve wicked problems like the climate crisis? This connects what a company learns on the inside to the well-being of the entire planet. It's a huge idea.
So, after exploring the dream, the harsh reality, and this cool evolution, what's the ultimate takeaway for us? Why does this concept, with all its flaws and baggage, still matter so much?
Here it is. Maybe the learning organization isn't a destination you can just arrive at, like some corporate utopia. Maybe the real value isn't in achieving the perfect ideal, but in the struggle itself, the messy, difficult, but incredibly valuable process of a group of people trying to figure out how to learn together. That process of questioning assumptions, of shifting from blame to curiosity, of trying to build a shared vision, that is where the real magic happens.
And that leaves us with one final thought. The goal isn't to boil the ocean or transform your entire company overnight. It's just about starting somewhere. So we'll leave you with this question, to take back to your own world. What is the one thing, one small change in a process, one different question you could ask in a meeting that your team could do differently tomorrow to just begin that journey of learning together?